Meeting to order. Today's Tuesday, November 13th, 2018, 6:03 p.m. We have a council work session first, off-premise signs.
Mayor and Council, as you recall, not too long ago, we brought back several changes to you, proposed changes to the city's ordinances. One of those being the sign code. We had several sign code additions, some deletions, that sort of thing. One of those additions that we had in there was the addition of eliminating off-premise signs. So we wanted to come back, talk to you about that. We've received some feedback from the the development groups in the city. As you know, they put a lot of signs up advertising their subdivisions, pointing people to where their subdivisions are. I did forward a letter on to you from Edge Homes with expressing their concerns. One thing that the prohibition of off-premise signs now entails is that even the city now, we cannot put out unless it falls under a certain category in the city. The schools, I got a call today from a lady that would like to put out for football recruiting, things like that. We just wanted to bring this back to the council, maybe get some feedback from you to decide, do you want us to pursue the course that we're on now with the prohibition of off-premise signs, see how that works, or do you want to give us some direction to possibly pursue something else?
Can I, before we start into council comments, with the feedback from some of the development community, some of the local people, rather than try and make a policy that we're trying to do, I'd rather see us put together maybe a group of maybe some developers and council members and discuss this out so that we don't impact business negatively or youth sports negatively with the off-premise signs. So I don't know, before we go down the discussion, if the council has comments on that. There you go.
My only point would be that I want to have that conversation, but do we need to do something now so that people can start to advertise or do what they need to? It's already some of the hardest time of year for developers selling homes and things during the holidays. And so as we work through it to find a long-term solution, is there something we can do temporarily to make sure that people can advertise their businesses? That's the only thing I would have to add.
Gordon, do you have a comment? Okay. Councilman Porter?
I'd just say I'd agree with Councilman McComber that, we want to, I think, remedy the situation that I think was, at least in my case, was inadvertently done, and just, maybe roll it back to where it was so that they can have some, and then have this working group where we can find a right answer for the long term.
Yeah, one thing we will have to look at is that if we open up to the businesses, we'll probably have to go back to everybody, really, because we can't regulate content of signs. So if we say, oh, the development community, you can do it, but McDonald's, you can't. We're going to have to look at that. Maybe that door goes open again where it goes back to everybody. That's something we'll have to discuss and pursue, if that's an option down the road.
Okay. Councilman Wilden?
I agree with the prior two comments on that. I mean, one of the things I suggested, I think 4 years ago, everyone kind of made fun of me at the time, was, and I think that's what one of the developers suggested, is they go through some approval process and they know it's approved, it's out there. So rolling it back and going through approval process, I know the content can't be remedied, but there is other things, or not remedied, sorry, legislated. Or regulated, there we go, that's the right word, but we can control sign or location, sizes, etc., and approval process. So I'm fine rolling it back to where we were before to immediate remedy, and then looking at a longer term solution with like approval and different things like that.
Yeah, and prior to that change, there was the process where they would come through, get a sign permit, we'd verify size, location, that sort of thing. A lot of the signs that are out there now do not have a permit, and we do now have our code compliance inspector, Brad Davis, who is on staff now, and he's been actively enforcing other codes as well, but among those being the sign code also.
Yeah, and I think other cities have like some sticker or something, I don't know, that makes it easy for the code enforcement or something that's easy to deal with.
Okay. Councilwoman Barch?
I think one of the things that I want to make sure we're not doing, though, is allowing the snipe signs everywhere, because the developers are still using the snipe signs, as well as the youth football and the yard sales and all of that. And that's one of the things that really makes our town look trashy, especially on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. And so I think that that's one area that we don't need to loosen up on, because that's always been in our code that they can't do that. So I think as long as we're making sure that we're being cautious in our temporary rollback, then I think that I'm okay with that.
Okay. Any other comments from the council? Do you have the direction you need?
Yeah, we can come back with maybe as simple as going back to that language. We can discuss this internally as staff and with Kevin to legally draft something that we think hopefully cover what we'd like to see and bring that back to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Councilman Porter?
Mayor, I was just wondering if maybe, I don't know how long it would take you to bring something back, but maybe if we could get something at the next meeting to invoke pending ordinance doctrine so that they could move forward.
All right.
Okay. Next on our work session tonight is the police and court facility.
Mayor, Council, Dave, if you could pull up the renderings. I know we've met with a number of you, discussed the budget and the project overall last couple of weeks. Just so you know, we wanted to make you aware that we've been going through our design process with our committee, with our general contractor, our architect. Councilman Poduska has been representing the council on that as well. Sorry, do we have those technical difficulties here, but
We'll just turn them off now.
okay. But Mayor, Council, we just want to make sure that, so these are the renderings that we're going with, or the design elements. You've seen these before, and really, it's out to bid right now, so you're aware. It is out to bid as of today, with a couple changes we'll be bringing to the engineering this week as staff. But we'll have hard numbers for you probably mid-December, and then budget amendment for that early January. So really just want to make you aware of this, and any questions you may have, I will try to tackle right now.
Okay, Councilman Porter?
I'm just noticing, looking at the east elevation and then looking at the rear elevation.
Okay.
The east elevation doesn't have the upper railing. The rear elevation does. Are we moving forward with one or the other? I know that that was something that came up in my conversations with you, and so I was just wondering what direction we were going with that.
We haven't necessarily pulled it, but that's certainly something we can. This is just the rendering, so we haven't updated those.
Looking at the renderings, one has it and one doesn't, so I was like,
yeah,
I wasn't sure if they just forgot to
it's
include
in
it
the bid
one.
package. It would be on the architectural package, and then we could obviously pull it if we decided not to, because it is aesthetic.
So it'll
it's
just
not
be an
structural.
add-on type. That's fine.
Yeah.
Councilman McComber?
I think we've talked about this before, but when we actually do have the materials, I'd like to see examples.
Right,
especially because this still looks very orange, the red.
Right, yeah. Once we actually have the materials selected, we'll bring in a materials board for you to
So
review.
just a variety, then we can choose. Because just so for everyone in the room, this is the first of a whole campus. And so we have to really establish the look and feel, because the library, city hall, all the different things down the road are going to play off of this design. So
Yeah, and we've communicated that with our architect, and as soon as the materials are selected, we'll bring in materials board
and we have
for
to
you
be
to
careful
review.
that we pick a brick or whatever that we can still buy in 5 years or 10 or whatever it might be. And that's something that this council or future council, whoever we use, if we end up needing to buy and stockpile it, even at City Works, or our city public works, so that we have the materials necessary down the road. Like a lot of people don't know, but BYU has the reason why their buildings, all even new ones, can have the same look and feel is they've bought in brick for they have enough for I think 7 more buildings on the campus and things. So they think ahead. So I'd like to do something similar so we can have a consistency if we need to.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, just one last thing I forgot to mention. We will be sending out a bid package through our general contractor for the footings and foundations, as well as the earthwork. So, and then obviously the other numbers will be coming in following that. So that's kind of the priority right now, so they can actually get those numbers in and start pushing dirt. And then obviously the vertical, everything else will be coming in after that. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the City Council policy meeting at 6:13 p.m., Tuesday, November 13th. Present tonight, we have Councilman Porter, Councilwoman Barch, Councilman McComber, Councilman Wilden, and Councilman Podeska. We do have a quorum. I've asked Councilwoman Barch to lead us in our invocation and Councilman Porter to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father who art in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered together as members of this wonderful community. We thank thee, Father, for those men and women who serve us each day in our public safety and also in our military. We are grateful for all of the residents who care so deeply about this town and want to make it a better place. We ask as we discuss various topics today that we might have clear heads, that we might be able to make good decisions for the city as an entire body. And we say this in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Will the audience please rise? Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matters not listed on the agenda. If you're here for the public hearings on the boundary adjustment with Lehigh or the 2019 budget amendments, please hold your comments for that. Please be respectful in your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please avoid repetitive comments. Is anybody here for public input at this time? If you'd come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mitch Holiday. I live at 4356 West Elk Rim Road in South Jordan, Utah. Council, mayor, staff, thanks for this time. I'm here for the off-site ordinance. I expect more people will roll in. I don't know if they expected the work session to be the part where we discuss this. I'm grateful that the signs, looking to roll that back for the developers. I think it's critical. Most people find the communities where people live in your city through the signage. I'm unique. I work with several builders that do the snipe signs. And Councilmember Barch, I know you made a comment about those. Let me just tell you my perspective on them. Most people, they use Google Maps, and the maps are not on, or the streets are not on Google Maps. So these signs help people make the turns that they need to. I take exception. You feel like they litter the city. My feeling is if they're done responsibly, which we do them, they're up for 12 hours, 24 hours, and then they're down. They're not the real estate investor seeks trainee sign that is left up, or any number of several signs. So they really work. The builders love them, and I'd like to be a part of the meeting where they're discussed, and hopefully we can come up with something that would be helpful for the builders and developers and also the residents of the city. So any comments or questions for me?
Just Owen, if you would get his name, since you're working with us on that.
Okay. Just one last thing too is this is my feeling. I work in about 40 different municipalities along the Wasatch Front, and the cities, they work with us generally, and it works out. I look at it, there's two kinds of people that see the signs, people looking for housing and city people. So I think most everybody else filters it out. They just don't notice it. But I truly believe that. I was out the other day and putting up signs, and I had the dog catcher come up behind me and say, you can't do that here. So I just think it's something that if cities put out resources for a sign that's up for such a short period of time, it's just unnecessary. And the builders really appreciate it. So thanks for your time.
Anybody else for public input at this time? Okay, if you come up, state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, hi, my name is Patrick Beaker. I live at 2472 South Astor Way here in Saratoga Springs. I've lived here for 12 years. See all this construction going on? I'm a carpenter. I want to just make you guys aware of the business model that's in place in the drywall industry. Is these subcontractors are using what we call labor brokers, which is a second-tier subcontractor. And they bring in labor that they're not paying any taxes on. They're not paying any workers' comp, name it. It's all cash money under the table. It gives these contractors the ability to underbid everybody and get any project they want. I know it's going to be happening in this city. I'm going to be monitoring it. I'm going to be making you aware of it, because what's happening is, to be a carpenter anymore is you'd have to be out of your mind to get in that industry. It's been an industry that I've been able to put kids through college, good, honest living, and I'm watching it totally destroyed all over the Salt Lake Valley on predominant commercial projects. And it's actually, puts people like myself in a position that you have to choose if you're gonna go work for these guys and be part of that model or not work. And it's happening. And it's gonna be happening at that police station, it's gonna be happening at the hospital, it's gonna be being built out here. I guarantee you it's gonna happen. And I'm going to be monitoring, I'm going to be reporting back to you. Safeguards need to be put in those contracts that responsible contractors that don't use that business model are the ones awarded those contracts, not just the low bid. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments for public? Okay, I will close the public input at this time. I do want to, if the council will indulge me, we do have our building inspector here. Are you aware of any of that, or?
No, not in the manner that he described it. I don't doubt that it goes on. As we review every permit application that comes through, we do have the general contractor provide the names and license numbers of all the subcontractors that they intend to use on that project. We run those licenses with the state to make sure they're licensed with the state, that the licenses are active, and that they have the proper qualifiers for the trades that they're going to be working in. We monitor it to that extent. And like I said, I don't doubt that what he described is going on, but we don't see that in that detail yet.
Okay. Mark, you had a comment?
Actually, it was me. So all of our contracts that we sign with, for construction contracts and professional service agreements, for us, where the city is a party, we require insurance, we require workers' comp of the employees. We don't want them working on the city site without workers' comp. So those, we can certainly look at trying to beef up those contracts, but those are required in our agreements.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a presentation from Envision Utah, Point of the Mountain Commission, Phase 3.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having me tonight. My name is Ryan Beck. I'm with Envision Utah, here representing the Point of the Mountain Development Commission. So a little bit about this project before I jump in. I did hand out this map, and you can kind of get an idea of the study area, but what we're really talking about when I say Point of the Mountain, we're talking about from Sandy all the way down to Saratoga Springs, Lehigh area. So when House Bill 318, the purpose of the effort, of course, we're talking about transportation infrastructure, but we're also talking about job creation, quality of life, things like recreation. We're talking about our housing, and I mentioned recreation and transportation. So we went through a process. Many of your staff was involved. I see some familiar faces here, but phase one was really about listening and research. We went out to the public, we went out to the stakeholders. We got their ideas how the area should grow and develop. Phase two, we mocked up some scenarios and we tested those with impacts. We modeled them and tested them. From that, we came up with a vision for the area, which is what is displayed on this map right here. But we did have many meetings, almost too many meetings to count. We got thousands of responses. But what's really interesting about this, if we do these signature elements, these 12 signature elements, we can expect Wasatch Front-wide about 150,000 additional jobs, many of which could locate in Saratoga Springs. But not only are these jobs, they're good jobs. Think about the IT jobs that are coming. 116,000 average household income. That's a pretty good living. And that trickles through the economy. That money trickles through the economy and adds about $10,000 to each person's household income. So each household income. So pretty significant if we draw this cluster here. So there's 12 elements on this map. I'm not going to go through all 12. That would take too long for tonight's discussion. But what we have here, you guys travel this I-15 bottleneck that we have out here at the point of the mountain, probably on a daily basis. We really see this as a state-level issue. This isn't for Lehigh to solve. This isn't for Draper to solve or Saratoga. It needs state investment. In fact, we know that about 60 to 70% of the people that are just trying to get through the area. They don't want to stop. They're not pulling off in Lehigh or at the outlets or anything. They're just trying to go north of Sandy to south of Lehigh, just trying to get through. That's not going to change in the future. It's actually going to go up. So some proposals, get to the meat here. So we are proposing for further study a few things. What you see here on the map is what we're calling a north-south boulevard. So think Bangerter Highway, the new 6th West interchange, comes through the prison site, joins Porter Rockwell, and about at the Geneva gravel pits, it breaks south and goes down to 2100 North, a new north-south boulevard. We figure that'll carry about 40,000 vehicles a day, help alleviate I-15, help alleviate Redwood, the future Mountain View corridor. I traveled Redwood Road tonight to get here. It was a mess. We're proposing Redwood Road, a lane in each direction. We're proposing completing Mountain View sooner and adding the lane in addition to what they're already thinking to help alleviate some of that north-south congestion.
You think adding a lane going to 2 each way? It originally was 1 each way at the start. Is that what you're, or 3 each way?
3 each way. Yep. Okay. We also talked a lot about urban centers, just like what we've got going on here, where we're sitting in Saratoga Springs right now. Great places where amenitized places, live, work, play centers. We identified a few, but Saratoga got one as well, just where we're sitting. Jobs close to where people live. What we're seeing, every one of you guys know the east-west transportation at rush hour. Right now, I-15 is a great place to locate jobs. Our housing's on the west side. That's creating that traffic problem morning and night. So we are suggesting that more jobs in the city centers, like I was just mentioning, more jobs in Saratoga. So I'm actually going to skip these because, so on the, you can see on the right side, they've got the ideal spacing for local collector and arterial road network. On the left side, you can see what we actually have. So this idea of this grid network is supported by UDOT. UDOT loves this. What it does is gives multiple ways to get around, so all the traffic is not just focused on a couple of corridors like Redwood or I-15. So this project we're proposing for further study. So this is, the Salt Lake Utah County line. This would be a high-speed connection that connects I-15 and Mountain View corridor. Initial modeling shows that carries about 175,000 vehicles a day who are trying to complete that X pattern. You know, think of someone in Saratoga trying to get to Salt Lake City, or maybe someone in Harriman trying to get to Lehigh Tech Corps. It's not without. Exactly. I was going to say not without its expenses, and there's a huge ravine there. Initial cost estimates put it at about $500 million. So a serious investment from the state. UDOT did look at this about 8 to 10 years ago. And they found exactly what you just said. It would be a big bridge. At the time, they just chose to invest in 2100. just right up the road here. What they're finding, what they're finding is by 2050, 2100, even though it will be a freeway, will be failing. So at 1.0 is kind of the capacity of the road. So you can see 2050 is about 1.5. If you build that bridge I was just talking about, 2100 still functions. So
My question is, so this says the 2100 North frontage road is this as 2100 North as frontage roads, or is that a freeway?
as a freeway, 2050 it's slated to be a freeway.
Right.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a frontage road now, so so we can describe it. It's slated to be a
But
freeway.
these numbers include it as a freeway?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So in terms of next steps, we are studying these further. We're working with the Mountain Land Association of Governments on their transportation plan to take an in-depth dives and look what makes sense. But as part of this project, we are now in phase 3. Of course, these cost quite a bit of money, and we have Zion's Public Finance on the team helping the state decide priorities and how to finance these projects. So with that, questions or comments?
Councilman McComber?
So I just have a quick one here. I'm loving this new alert thing. This is making us feel a lot more professional. Sorry, just have to say this is nice that we're meeting the technical needs. So I'm looking down here, just so you know, and just bring your attention, I'm sure you maybe heard this, but the transit corridor preservation you have going through Pioneer Crossing and then up onto SR 73. In Saratoga Springs, in our maps, we have a transit corridor at the Pony Express a little further south.
Okay.
You're taking out about 150 homes with that preservation corridor. It doesn't really make sense with Pioneer Crossing for that, at least for me. I think it's better at the American Fork track station and how we have it, and then coming through. And we've actually started preserving corridor already.
Great.
With developers. We have a large development and actually preserving a station, possible station for you in that development. So if you could just work with staff and make sure, because if you want to keep that one, that's fine. But I think that really as part of this you got to go just one more major, because it's the Eagle Mountain. Because Eagle Mountain comes out of Pony Express. And so really, when we say Saratoga Springs, you really also have 150,000 people in Eagle Mountain that need to be funneled out. So the tracks going out on Pony Express makes more sense coming around the backside and then connecting through the DR Horton property, how you have, and then up into the heart of the gravel pits. So we work with staff a little bit to help you understand, because we obviously live and breathe our city, right? You're living and breathing 20 cities. So just wanted to point that out.
No, I appreciate the comments. So obviously on this map, it's a little bit cartoonish, and we did that on purpose, because anytime you draw a line on a landowner's, you take a lot of heat.
Right.
But I do appreciate the input. It's really good.
Just generally the whole vicinity of that Pioneer Crossing one, if you keep it, just have another cartoonish one expand your map just a little bit further. It's actually, I think, in the map. It is. It's that white there right at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
That's Pony Express.
Yeah.
So you could easily just,
very good
it makes
input.
more sense because we're already preserving it for you.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. But then now they're hearing from us too. So it just makes more sense.
Needed a big T-shirt that said "I'm official."
From Saratoga.
Yeah. So I did. Yeah. And other than that, I love the planning. We absolutely, the forward thinking is exactly what we want. We have a lot of people wanting to move into this community. As you know, we have many, many, many developments happening. And so I appreciate the added effort. And we would love any support in getting businesses into Saratoga Springs, and not just in the research university and office space here in the Draper prison property.
And we are working. I think the sooner Mountain View's completed, the more likelihood of getting quality jobs over here in Saratoga. So
they'll be able to even cut right into 2100 and then all the way up to the airport. Yeah,
that's right.
Thank you.
That's right.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
So, first off, a lot of the things that you're talking about, I love. The widening of Redwood Road, the connection to the Mountain View corridor up to Porter Rockwell. The questions I had was on this second freeway connection north of Thanksgiving Point, the bridge.
Yeah.
I guess I see your modeling. I grew up in Southern California where they have more freeways than they have surface streets. And so I'm used to having lots of freeways really close to each other. And even to me, seems too close.
Too much.
It seems like you should widen 2100 North rather than just building another freeway bridge a mile up the road. It's just, I've never seen two freeways
And
in that proximity to each other.
we have heard similar sentiments that what you're just saying from a lot of people. So what we're saying is, hey, let's study it. It's not a foregone conclusion. Let's see if it makes sense. But
Right.
we have,
And I think it's valid to study. I think especially where it's a huge bridge, I think you're probably going to get more bang for your buck building it 2100 and widening that to 3-lane freeway instead of a 2-lane freeway, as opposed to building a huge bridge. But you guys can study it.
Well, I agree. And you think about the environmental impacts and the people move here for the great views. Might be a beautiful bridge. It might be a typical UDOT bridge too. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And then my only other comment was, as I said, I'm really grateful that you guys are pushing for the Mountain View Corridor connection down here in the south sooner. I think it's absolutely needed. And you know, if you go back to the map with the jobs and the housing, yeah, that one. I mean, you say that the jobs are still locating along the I-15 corridor, and that's because it is an interstate. It's a freeway.
Yeah.
I think rather than expanding the Mountain View corridor from whatever it is, West Jordan down to here to 3-lane frontage roads, that you really need to explore whether it needs to be a freeway. Just you keep the 2 frontage roads and start, because that was always the original vision, is build the frontage roads, then start building the freeway in between.
Yeah.
So why would we widen the frontage roads instead of just building the freeway? If the needs are there, then we just need to build the freeway.
I
I like your point, because the business will come. Why build more businesses on I-15 and create more trauma?
Right.
Trauma there.
I think if we build the freeway over here, then they'll start locating over here because they want to be next to a freeway. They want that transit connection. So
totally agreed.
So I just, as far as studying expanding the frontage road system, I think we're just kicking the can down the road rather than biting the bullet and saying we just need to build the freeway that's always been planned to go here.
I fully agree. Fully agree.
All right, those are my 2 points.
Councilwoman Barch?
So ditto what Councilman Porter said on the expanding. It doesn't make any sense to expand the frontage roads. Frontage roads are not supposed to be 3 and 4 lanes wide. They're supposed to be a frontage road, and then you build the freeway.
Yeah.
So if we expand the frontage roads, then you're actually going to be then having to rip them up to build the freeway, which is exactly what UDOT was trying not to do. So if we can stick with their original plan as far as that goes, the 2-lane frontage roads and then build the freeway.
Okay.
My other concern as I'm looking at this is I see corridor preservation for transit north down to about Rosecrest. I see corridor preservation kind of from Thanksgiving Point down to our city center area and along improperly, like Councilman McComber said, Pony Express or Pioneer Crossing instead of Pony Express where it should be. What I'm missing is that area being preserved between Rosecrest and our Saratoga Springs City Center. It doesn't make any sense to do it further to the east, another transit line over there. You need to really have it along that other freeway corridor, which is the Mountain View corridor.
Yeah.
We've got this huge big wide corridor.
Basically, Harriman Station with potentially a Saratoga Springs.
Exactly, which really goes from, the airport down to Daybreak, down to Harriman, down to Saratoga Springs, and it keeps going. Again, we've got this bottleneck that we keep talking about there, and yet we keep making the bottleneck worse instead of spreading it out as far as we can and making those 2 lines as far apart as possible. Yeah. So that's something that we really need to look at, is continuing that preservation all the way down that Mountain View corridor and tying in there.
It's about ridership on front crawler.
It's about ridership on the front crawler, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, until it's useful, they'll never get their ridership. And that's one of the things right now. And we've talked to UTA about this. To us out here, they're not useful right now. And so it actually decreased. Their ridership actually decreased when they got rid of our express bus.
Yep.
and made us go to the front runner station and then go out from there. It's just not useful. It actually increased the travel times, and so ridership actually decreased in our area. So overall, I appreciate the planning. I do wonder a little bit how you balance wanting to move businesses out here when the state is going to be subsidizing business development on I-15 corridor. So one of the things it says is we need to move that out here, and yet the state is subsidizing their business development through that prison site, when naturally it would have come out here, and now we're going to be put off another 10, 15, 20
Fighting our
years.
own tax dollars.
Because, yeah, with our tax dollars to subsidize the prison site, when normally that would have been coming out to us.
No, we hear you, and we've heard that from other cities as well that aren't Draper or
Yeah.
the state.
Yep, absolutely.
And we have echoed your concerns right up to the commission that there's a lot of sensitivity about that, and you know, it's touchy. So, well,
Run by people who own the prison.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
so yeah, we understand the concerns fully. It's a real concern.
Very good. Well, I appreciate looking, forward thinking and trying to figure this out. We need to look at this. This is, we've got this incredible growth, and it's something we definitely need to look at. So thank you.
Mayor and Council, just real quickly, when we met a couple weeks ago, we talked about so many of these issues. I want you to know that we have discussed it as a staff level. We've pushed your concerns up. There's obviously some nuances that you've brought out that we didn't necessarily articulate, but I want to know that we've had this conversation and we are very emphatically on the same page, sharing the concerns that you've raised here tonight as well.
I can second that. Mark has told me your same concerns at least 4 times.
Good.
Yeah.
Maybe the 5th time we'll finally get the map.
Mark Christensen for governor.
I just threw up a little bit.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, reports from the council. I'll start with council reports. Any reports? Councilman Podeska?
Yeah, so in working with a group of parents here in the community, we have organized assemblies and a parent night for Westlake and Vista Heights. And I just wanted to announce they'll be sending out more advertisement and flyers and so forth. But this is to have Colin Karchner come in for the school assemblies. He's kind of a local celebrity that teaches on proper use of devices and social media, how to re-engage with real life relationships, not just digital relationships. Him seeing, amongst others, that this is almost a leading cause into depression and suicide. And so as a council, as we kind of discussed, wanting to help efforts with that, we've been moving forward with that. So December 11th is Westlake's Student Assembly. Because of so many students, we're doing it in the gym, and they have to split up into 2 different assemblies. For Vista, they didn't have any other options other than their auditorium, so that's a 4 assembly at 25 minutes each. So it's a little crazy, but just yes. But we do have the full support of the community councils in both Vista and Westlake, along with the student council at Westlake. And then December 12th is Vista's assembly. And then that night, December 12th, at Vista, is the parent night for both Westlake and Vista parents. And that parent night will be 2 hours with an expert panel. One of them, graciously, is our Police Chief Burton, that will be on that panel as well, with other experts.
Okay.
I'm going to piggyback on this real quick. David, can we make sure we get that on our, the Saratoga Springs Facebook page, like the dates and times of those things that are happening, to make sure that the city is supporting those efforts so that parents can...
Or if...
Well, no, that to inform parents, hey, your son or daughter who go to Westlake, just 'cause sometimes our kids don't always communicate to the parents. And
or
so
maybe,
make sure the
maybe
kids
through
go to
communities
those.
that care, if
Communities that
that's
care.
a better resource for that. But
I just want to make sure that, we encourage participation.
I just, last Saturday, we held the Veterans Day flag ceremony at Neptune Park. Councilwoman Barch and myself were able to attend. It was a great ceremony. We had several veterans from the city that showed up for it, as well as, and the flag ceremony was conducted by a local troop. So it was a great experience, and we're looking forward to being able to hold next year's at Patriot Park.
Perfect. Okay. Councilwoman Barch.
Just a note that we've got the Utah Valley Visioning meeting coming up this Thursday. I plan on attending. I didn't know which of the other council members were planning, if they were or not. That's down in Provo that's happening, put on through Envision Utah and the chambers in the area. Pretty sure it's on Thursday all day. Maybe I might be confusing my two different meetings, and that's very possible. Sorry, the Valley Visioning is tomorrow. Yeah. Yes. I've got another meeting on, yeah, anyway. So that's on that one. And then also just a thank you, and this is kind of a personal thanks to our fire crews. They came out to our neighborhood this evening, and we had a call, and it turned out to be nothing, but they were very responsive, as well as Lehigh and Eagle Mountain. So just a thanks to all of them, Chief. They were quick and responsible and very kind, so thanks.
Okay, Councilman Wilden.
The mayor and I participated in our first liaison role meeting. I think it went very well. I appreciate Mark facilitating that. The only problem is there was an awful lot of brown nosing going on to the mayor.
Yeah, you should have been more quiet. Mark and them were just tired of it.
No, but joking aside, I appreciate Mark you setting that up, and I think it went quite well. So thank you.
Okay. This was just more for the councils. As the BLM has closed down some of our access to public land for recreational hobbies, with the promise of someday having a shooting range down south. Someday. We'll have a bridge and islands before then. But Wasatch Wing and Clay is in the county. They've been having some issues with getting some stuff through the county. Some of that is county code. Commissioner Lee, Commissioner Ivey was going to join us. Commissioner Lee came out today. I was out there just before this meeting. We took a tour of the facility, spent some time out there. They're trying to make some text code amendment changes. I know we can't take official action, but kind of from the council, as they roll into this, if we'd be willing to maybe kind of support the county's efforts to preserve this. It is in the dark sky ordinance. Camp Williams has already wrote a letter in support of it. They would like to keep that area vacant like we're trying to do along our Camp Williams border. So anyways, just as the council, you know, as we get going, we can maybe support that. Okay, perfect. Administration, any reports? Oh, you're not, there you go.
We do have need of a closed session this evening, so we will need that, but other than that, at this time, I think we're okay.
Okay. We'll move on to reports item 4, department quarterly updates. Police, fire, EMS, and then building. It's all yours, Chief.
So, Mayor, Council, happy to stand before you this evening to give the quarterly report for the police department. Been a busy quarter for us. A lot of activities, a lot of stuff going on. I believe you've had this in your packet, so you've been able to look at it. I'll just make a comment on a couple of the items. Most of them are self-explanatory, but in October, we did participate with the city as a whole in a citywide training event. And so that went well. We conducted that up at Camp Williams. On special events, I'll just make a note that we did institute our new body camera implementation. The new system is much better, much improved from our old system. The officers like it a lot better. It's easier to use. It doesn't come without some challenges. There's always, with technical, as you have experienced, there's always little glitches with technical things. But it's working out very well, and it's a good system. The resolution is very good. The camera is easy to use. The download is really easy. It's a great system, and so we do appreciate the City Council's support on that item, because that was sort of an extra item last year to purchase that. The only other thing I'll note on those, you know about most of those, we did take a tour of both. We had all of our officers take a tour of both of the explosives plants in our city. Some of the fire department went with us, and we got a pretty good education about all of that, and we'll have a better capability to respond should we have any situations involving either of those two sites. Were there any questions regarding any of these items? Okay, great. On calls for...
Sorry, it was on the next slide.
Oh,
I gotta
sorry.
hear myself.
No question?
Nope.
Okay.
Next slide.
So on calls for service, not too much has changed since our summer retreat. I believe that our, as we look at it, the percentage increase of our calls for service closely matches the percentage increase of our population. You can kind of see the little bit of the trend lines there. The yellow is the population, and the light blue is the calls for service numbers. As we project that 5 and 10 years, and how I made these projections is I took the average of about the last 7 years, and that was projected through those 5 and 10 year periods. So you can see that in 5 years, we'll reach something over 30,000 calls for service a year. Another little add in there, you can see what numbers of calls for service per officer per year we have. We first started noticing a little bit of crunch on our time in about 2015. In that time frame, we started noticing that we didn't have time to do some of the nice to do things. What's known as our unobligated time was reduced. And the unobligated time that an officer has is when he does neighborhood patrol and those kinds of things. But also looking at this, if we assume that somewhere around that number of 950 or 1,000 or 1,050 that we are at our approximate recommended level of, or number of calls for service per officer per year, then you can see that in 5 years we might project that we'd need a significant number more officers. So, any questions on this slide?
So I just had a question on this one. So you're looking at, on the lower graph, you're looking at numbers of patrol officers and watching that trend line. The calls per service per officer per year, is that also for the officers, or is that all of our detectives and everything?
No, the number of officers that I used to make this calculation include all the patrol officers, the 2 animal control officers, and the commercial vehicle inspection officer. So that's essentially all of our uniformed personnel that are out on the street. That does not include detectives that are not typically answering our calls for service. They're just doing follow-up investigations. The number of calls, and it's not that they never handle a call, but the number of calls for service that they handle is insignificant, really. They're focused more on the follow-up investigations. So that number of 18 includes all the patrol officers, all the animal control officers, and the
commercial truck,
the commercial vehicle inspection truck officer.
Councilman Porter?
So you said that about 2015 you started to notice a crunch and decrease in the unobligated time. I'm just wondering, is there some sort of data that you're using, or is this just anecdotal? The guys are saying we just don't have as much time to do these things?
Mostly anecdotal, and that we're noticing that we don't have as much time. We don't have, for instance, one of the things that we typically did was a vacation check. We would log those vacation checks. We noticed that the number of times that the vacation check could be accomplished had dropped. So mostly anecdotal.
Okay.
To actually measure the unobligated time would be pretty difficult.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is there even a way to do that, or
it'd be pretty tough, because every kind of call, every kind of traffic stop, the same kind of traffic stop might take 10 minutes with one person and 20 minutes with another person.
Right. Well, I was just wondering, do you have like a log that would show that? Like, could you go back and, recreate an officer's day, how much unobligated time they had in a day, or is that not even something you could get to?
I'm not sure yet, but Mark and I have been in conversation off and on for quite some time now about trying to develop a better mining of our data and an analysis of that data. So we're currently working on some projects that have exactly that kind of thing in mind. In fact, tomorrow we've had a presentation from a retired police official, Mike King is his name, that works for Esri, and that individual is coming tomorrow to the Utah County Chiefs meeting to give a presentation so that we can get some support from the police chiefs on letting us have our hands on some of that data, which is...
Yeah, I know that Utah County has been reticent to let us access our own data.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing.
It's because our data is shared with everyone else's.
Right.
But we're working on that in this meeting tomorrow with the chiefs. We'll have this presentation. They've already started to, I've been working on them a little bit, and they've already started to come around to the idea that, yeah, we need this data. We need to be able to mine it and take a look at it.
All right. Well,
we may be able to find ways to closer figure out those kinds of...
they would have like the dispatch when the officer was called on to the incident and when they were called off and stuff like that.
Possibly, but one of the other challenges we have is that Utah County agencies are all on Spillman, which is a flatline database. It's a traditional database, whereas almost every other police RMS, records management system, or computer-aided dispatch system is a relational set of data.
Right.
And so the Spillman data might be difficult, even if we get our hands on it, the Spillman data might be difficult to mine and might be difficult to analyze.
Yeah.
So the second thing that I've talked the chiefs into doing is taking a look at other options besides Spillman. So we've started down a road of starting to look at some of those other systems, and those systems have much greater capability for analysis of the kinds of things we're talking about.
Yeah, the two-dimensional databases are limited in what you can get out of them. So. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Any
Councilman Podeska?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up with what Councilman Porter was talking about. With the number of calls, do we at least know kind of, because you had mentioned like the detectives, they hardly take any, but out of these calls we have animal control, commercial, and then the normal patrolman. It's kind of the sense of their time being kind of limited. Is that across the board for those three areas of animal control, commercial, or are we seeing most of these calls are animal control and commercial, and not as much on the patrol side?
I'll show you a breakdown of the calls for service, where they fall. You can kind of see from that where most of them are, but the biggest percentage of our calls are routine. And I don't like the word routine, but regular patrol calls.
Okay.
I'll give you you'll see the breakdown here shortly. Okay. Any other questions on this one?
Councilman Wilburn?
Just out of curiosity, how often, and I'll caveat this with a follow-up question, criticizing my own question basically, but how often do you update this? So I guess my question is, if we saw a significant decline in, say, building permits, would that change what you'd forecast out?
It depends, because Well, I'll show you a couple of other figures that will give you an indication that not everything we do has to do with our own population growth.
Yeah.
We have a lot of pass-through, and a lot of our work is on some of that pass-through traffic, pass-through citizenry.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And
But how often we, to answer your first question, Councilman, we do it as often as we can run the report. So we have to run a manual report to get these kinds of numbers. And so typically we do that about 3 times a year when we have a quarterly report or we have a retreat 3 or 4 times a year.
No, that makes sense. The other just general comment, I professionally spend a lot of time on data. I would just caution, like, making sure if we're going down a certain path to create certain metrics, just to make sure it's going to be really value add. Because a lot of times someone will say, well, I guess we're going to lose $2 million on this deal, and then we'll spend months developing something that forecasted $2 million. Do you know what I mean? So I just, that's where I'm coming from a data guy, and I really like these metrics. That's what I've pushed for a lot of years, and I think you've really led in those metrics. So I really appreciate it. It's just being cautious at how much we spend in it, because at some point you got to look at the incremental value. So it'd be interesting also to see your peers, not in just the state of Utah, other places, what are they doing with data and what they've found beneficial and useful before you or your staff spends too much time on some of those. Because I have a lot of experience of building something that ended up exactly what we just subjectively predicted too. So
yeah,
that just means I'm pretty good at subjectively predicting. So,
or making your model do what you want it to.
Yeah. Probably the latter is true, but
so come and help us with that, Councilman.
Mark.
So, Mayor, Council, as Chief alluded to it earlier, we are really trying to get a link to the data so that we can have real-time data for policing. It's really, I mean, I want us to be making intelligence-based decisions and letting the chiefs, both police and fire, use the data in real-time scenarios. We have the technology, we have the ability to use it, and it's just, it's that missing link of us being able to connect to the data. And when we do, to Stephen's point, we won't waste time necessarily generating reports, because we'll have real-time reports that will just be part of, open dashboards that we can view at any given moment.
It'd be automated for this kind of thing all the time. But it'd also be better and easier if we had, instead of the traditional data, if we had the relational data system.
Councilman Wilden?
I know it doesn't relate to your department exactly, but when we do get into developing out more metrics, not just for you guys, fire, the other departments, I'd recommend not hiring a consultant, but maybe looking at an MBA intern that's not MBA, that's doing a master's in statistics or economics, because there's some good people in the city, but not someone that has that modeling, at least from my experience, what I see in the private sector, that detailed experience. And my department, we hire interns with that type of background, can do a lot of that data work. You'd probably have to pay more than you would for a standard intern. But it would be significantly less in a consulting firm, and it'd be a good experience for someone in an econ background or an econ program or a statistics. Cheaper than a consultant.
Councilman Porter?
Yeah. Given that I'm looking at a data science degree, I'd also add data science to the econ and statistics. But, I just wanted to reiterate, the importance of getting some of this data, just, for future councils when we're looking, and for future police chiefs and yourself as you continue on doing this work. I mean, I spent some time with Brian Gallegos with the city, and just even some in his background isn't statistics or economics. It's, I believe, geology or something like that. The modeling guy. And so anyway, he's able to generate some interesting heat maps and stuff like that.
He's actually part of our committee that's working on this.
And I'm sure he would be involved because he's been doing a lot of that work for the city. But, you know, if we could get the data from the county, we would be able to look at heat maps of where we're seeing crime, if it's spiking in certain areas, and that would help you in organizing patrols and keeping the citizens
And
safer.
some of the capability that Esri has with data, even our traditional data, is that some of those things are possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for us to, and for you to be able to do your job better, and for us to be able to plan the future of the police force better if we can get a hold of that data. So I really hope that you guys are successful in convincing the other chiefs to.
Well, we're trying it the diplomatic route first.
Okay.
Any others on that one, or? Okay, so on the next slide, similar thing, and this is, now Stephen's not here. This shows our accident rate, and you can see, oh, okay. This, yeah, I was going to mention that, so in 2011, we had 16 accidents per 1,000 population, and now we're at 20 accidents per 1,000 population. And this is where some of that pass-through traffic is affecting us. So it's not our population necessarily. I think a lot of this increase, a 25% increase in that 7-year period, is from other communities traveling through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I have one serious question and one not so serious question. One is, how many of these are, like, I mean, does this include accidents we respond to outside of the city limits? Because I know that every time there's an accident at 23rd West, I see our officers there, so.
Well, keep in mind that a lot of times we are at an accident scene, but we're not necessarily handling it.
Right.
Okay,
but so these are the ones we're in charge of? Okay.
I mean, there may be one or two in these numbers that are technically not our cities, but that it'd be it wouldn't be have any impact.
Okay.
On the
My not so serious question is, what would happen to this line if we took out all the Eagle Mountain drivers?
My not so serious answer, I don't know. No, it's but that, I think we're feeling like that's probably where we're getting that increase, is we're not dealing with just our own population when it comes to traffic. Right. And the same holds true for citations. You can see here, we've had an increase in the number of citations, right? And it also holds true for arrests. A lot of folks that we deal with, that we arrest, that we write citations to, don't live in our city. They're from sometimes Eagle Mountain, sometimes Lehigh, sometimes quite often actually Salt Lake area. So, were there any questions on the accident or citation slides? Okay. Response time, not really any change since the last retreat. Our goal is to try and respond on priority 1 calls in 7 minutes, but roughly 8.5 minutes is not real bad. That's not too bad. And we believe that even though our calls for service have gone up, we've managed this through supervision and through application of prioritization, that kind of thing. So, any question on that? Tried to give you an idea on the arrests, but...
Oh, sorry, Councilman Podeska.
Oh. Sorry, I did on the previous slide. What would you say is kind of the biggest obstacle on the response time that's keeping you from faster than 8.5?
Well, I don't know that it's only one thing. I mean, we do have occasionally a fair distance to go because we have kind of a long city geographically, but I think the workload affects it. Believe it or not, there are times when we have calls holding in this city where I don't have officers available to respond. And if they're on a call, sometimes it's tough to break away or break off that call to go on a priority 1 call. So I think that these numbers back here are affecting that. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, thanks.
On the arrests, we did have a steep increase this year. The linear line doesn't really show it, but at least in the per capita basis, you can see that generally we've been around 25, and this year we're at 30. I believe that this is in part due to the change in the type of calls that we're starting to get. And that's shown here. And of course, we discussed this at some length at the retreat on at least the mental subjects and suicide threat calls. I believe that we've briefed you a little bit on what we did to kind of address that, to include putting in the hands of the officers at least some information and some resources. We have a pamphlet now that we can give to people with resources. We have a link on our website that people can click to gain resources on those kinds of issues. But on the call, types of calls that are starred, those are the kinds of calls that typically require more than one officer and also often result in an arrest. So as you look at the arrest numbers increasing, I think it's in concert with the increases that we're seeing in the kinds of calls that we typically have arrests on. So I've got, you know, in addition to workload concerns about how many calls for service an officer handles, I've also got concerns about the type of calls that our officers are responding to, and the fact that more of our calls are calls that require a backup officer. So we can't look just at the statistics and the data and the workload. We've also got to consider officer safety and the kinds of calls we're going on along with that workload. Are there any questions on this particular slide?
Councilman Podeska?
Yeah, so on the 51% increase on the previous slide, is that including also pass-through? So the 51% increase on arrests?
And that's hard to say because as you look at this chart, we wouldn't be handling a domestic violence case outside our city.
Right.
If you look at assaults, weapon offenses, threats, sex offenses, domestic violence, 911 calls, disturbances, those kinds of things, drug offenses, those are all in our city. Mm-hmm. They're not passed through. Okay. Occasionally a drug offense would be on a traffic stop if we discover you know, some drugs in the car or something like that. But typically, most of those other calls, that's not passed through.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
I remember a couple years back at retreat, you gave us the data on, you know, percentage of calls that required two officers and how often people were either having to wait or for that second officer to get there so they could respond, or they were answering the call on their own and stuff. I would just be interested if we could get that data.
Yeah, we can look at that again.
Okay.
I'll make a note. Anything else? Okay, well, let me just say in conclusion,
Councilman Barch had something.
Okay.
Just one more comment. With Lehigh's construction on what appears to be Saratoga Springs, that is not on the west side of Redwood, across from like Sergeant Court and Aspen Hills Boulevard area there, they have, and I'm sure you've obviously seen this, but they've now put in left turn lanes instead of the permissive center turn lanes that used to be there. So I'm wondering if you're starting to see any issues with those two areas like we have done down in front of the Smiths, where people are using those left turn lanes as
I haven't
lanes.
heard of anything, and as I've driven back and forth past there, I hadn't seen anything. In fact, we haven't seen much traffic there, but now, just the last few days, people have started figuring out that that's there, and they're starting to use it. So we may, I don't know, we'll keep our eye on it.
I've had, just because as I go back and forth in the mornings, dropping my daughter off at early morning jazz band and stuff, I've seen people pulling out into those left turn lanes that right now there's not really a road on the Lehigh side yet, but there will be shortly. And so I just kind of a heads up that I think that'll start to become an issue also,
okay,
both at Aspen Hills and at Sergeant Court.
All right, we'll keep our eye on it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We're good.
Okay, well, thanks. The police department really appreciates the support that we have from the mayor and the council. The officers feel the support. They know of your support. It's a positive attitude that they have about our mayor and council. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Chief Campbell?
Thank you. Mayor, Council, always a pleasure to be here with you to discuss points of interest with us. So just like we presented to you earlier in our earlier retreat, or the retreat plus our last quarterly update, just wanted to update some of the things that we're doing, some of the different things that with respect to our personnel certifications, some of the things that they've been able to accomplish, as well as some of the things we're doing in the community with respect to our elementary schools, our children, and some of those programs. Continue to have just a continual uptick of movement, desires to come to the stations, tours, things like that. Whoops, what's going on? Oh, it's like, wow, I'm not even touching it. Anyway, one of the things that we've been doing while David figures that out is one of the things we've coupled with a EMT school out of the Provo area, and we've had an agreement with them that we will provide ride-alongs for their students to be able to give them an opportunity to test the knowledge and some of those things and give them some exposure. So we've had 53 students that we've had about over the, so just we've almost had one, we've had at least one or two a week over the last several months. And so something that we think is important, it also gives us an opportunity to, if we come across somebody that seems pretty sharp, that we can steer them in the right direction if it's somebody we want to potentially hire on a part-time or full-time basis. So, this is, where did we go? What'd you do to me, David? All right, so with that, this is, this video is just jumping out. So I'll explain to it before I go to it. So one of the things we're doing is we purchased turnout equipment. So as we go around to the schools and we interact with our elementary schools, and we've done all of them but two. We have two left to do. We actually have our personnel go during recess. We ask the teachers to select a couple of students in each class and they give them some sort of a sticker or some sort of icon that allows them to come out, gives it to our personnel. And we know that they've been the ones that have been tapped for us to put in their little turnout suits. And we create a little combat challenge course for them to go through. And so that's what this is. This is a video of some of that happening. And so we have them go through a series of evolutions. And this one particular young man was very good at this. We're keeping his name on file. But yeah, he was supposed to drag that, and it just started rolling. So, but the kids have a tremendous time doing this. We have our personnel have a great time doing it as well, and it's something that because of the popularity, we're going to continue to develop and grow it. We're actually going to be ordering some. A few more turnout sets for some bigger students so that we can maybe take it into, make it a little more challenging for our older classes. So with respect to some of the things we've done locally in July, you can see in July, August, the different fires that we went to locally, the acres that were involved. We also had crews that we assisted on the Bald Mountain Fire in the Woodland Hills, Elk Ridge area, but not only just on the fires, but when the fires were out, we also sent personnel there to prepare for potential debris flows. We sent our Swiftwater folks there. So we had them on standby for a couple of nights so that we could better help them. And then on the national level, 36 days, 12 different fires, Nevada, California, and Utah. And what we've invoiced for that program was over $112,000 this last year. So. Again, just like everything else, this will continue to go up. Maybe should have had building go first, because if he's showing a downtick in building permits, then that kind of blows holes in some of our numbers. But somehow I don't think that's going to happen for a while. But this is kind of what's going on with respect to call volumes and demands, different types of calls, EMS, fire, those kind of things. One of the things that's interesting is we're seeing we saw a larger uptick in fire calls than what we had anticipated. And then this chart shows the different days of the week, times of the day, those kind of things. It's just interesting for us to be able to kind of keep a pulse on when some of those things go. It's not really a good predictive model to necessarily utilize, but because one of the things we're finding is that gap between midnight and 6 a.m. Those call volumes continue to increase during that time. So we received our ambulance last year, and we're in the build process for a new ambulance. We are slated to receive that in January of next year, and we are in the process of a recruitment process for hiring some part-time folks, that you've agreed to or allowed us to implement in January. And then just again, some of the things too, the big ticket items. Our engine is 6 years old, 78,000 miles. Going through the IFFP process, one of the things we've determined is that with that, at about 2023, we're looking at that being the life of our current engine. Certainly after 100,000 miles, the value of that drops dramatically as far as the trade-in value. So that's something to bear in mind. And again, the ladder truck discussion we'll have soon enough, but it does take it's 360 days to build a ladder truck. So it takes a little bit of time. So,
Councilwoman Bartsch's question.
Yeah. A couple items. First of all, I love the video of the kids and the turnouts.
You turned yourself off.
Thanks, sorry. I love the video of the turnouts with kids, and I don't know if it's possible or not, but it might be something fun to put on our website of something cool that the firefighters are doing to help get the kids involved in public safety. So, yeah, it'd be really fun. So, and I don't know if, as far as like permission from the parents and things like that, or if it's blurred enough that we don't have to worry about it. So.
Yeah, we could maybe crosshatch the face or something.
Something, I don't know. Anyway, it's just pretty awesome. So,
we just put it on YouTube. So.
Well, we did just put it on YouTube, technically, yeah. When our crews are deployed, either out of state or just out of town, like they have been a lot this year, how are you doing as far as keeping our in-house staff going? Are we having problems keeping staff levels up? Are we doing okay there?
Well, just the time of year. I mean, the answer to the question on the surface, there's a little bit of issue, certainly, but not to the point where we've really had our citizens at risk. During that time. Our goal is to try to have 6 a day, 3 in each station. There were times that fell back to 5 because we were unable to get, whether it be part-time or whatever the case may be. Trying to also be conscientious about our overtime budget and some of those things as well. So there is an impact. I'm not going to deny that, but it hasn't been something that's been insurmountable or that I felt has put us at risk by participating in that.
Excellent. And then my last thing was on the EMS runs. You mentioned that most of them were in the north. The majority of them were in the north as compared to the south. I assume that's because most of the commercial and most of the traffic goes through the north. Is that a lot of that because of EMS calls and traffic accidents?
So so we do get we do respond at least a couple of times a day to our IHC clinic. To generally transport patients out of there. People that have gone in there and the physicians on staff there have determined this is something more than they'd like to see. And so we get asked to go there and transport those patients out of there. That's been part of it. Without naming names, one of our large stores is also responsible for multiple calls a day, it seems. But also the traffic accidents, we've, generally and more so on the northern end, or at least north of Pioneer, has been kind of that area as well. But beyond that, that's probably been the biggest driver.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Okay. Councilman Podeska.
Yeah, so kind of similar question with the police. So on those number of calls and incidents, do you also support Eagle Mountain or Lehigh in those kind of efforts? So do those numbers reflect out of our city
calls?
So it's both, actually, and I thought we had it in here. I know that we've had it in the past, and I'll certainly make sure it's in there on our next quarterly update to be able to show you what it is that we're receiving as far as a mutual aid situation, but also what we're providing other municipalities. What's interesting, though, is and I'm not trying to, not at all trying to disparage law enforcement, but with respect to concern for turf and, you know, jurisdictions, those kind of things, and it needs to be so, probably with many of the things that law enforcement are concerned with, that's a much greater desire or concern than it is with fire. But part of that, too, is we also know and understand that we depend on each other greatly to be able to fulfill those larger alarm assignments with respect to structure fires and those kind of things. And so we're actually having discussions about putting in what we call AVL pucks. They're automated vehicle locators that our dispatch screen, our dispatchers will actually see our units moving on their screen, and they'll be able to dispatch closest unit. And so that's kind of what the discussion we're having. We would rather have, really, you know, our feeling is we don't really care what our constituents, what color it is that shows up in front of their house, as long as something shows up when they dial those 3 magic numbers. Yeah. And so that's kind of the direction that we're moving with respect to that.
And because do we also have some already out in California on those fires, or are they all home?
So everybody's home. We have one of the things I did put on here, we have an upcoming promotional process, again, to prepare for things that are going to be implemented in January. I didn't want to commit our folks and inhibit their abilities to prepare for that process. We got a tremendous response from agencies throughout the state. However, I did tell my folks this morning in a staff meeting that should there be another call for help, we will respond to that, and irrespective of what we've got coming up in as far as a promotional process. So,
great, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Yep. Thank you,
Chief. Okay, Mark, you've been very patient.
Mayor, Council, thanks for the opportunity to come spend a few minutes with you. This slide is one you see every time. Keep it on the wall over there by the building department. Just kind of shows the trends and just shows that things continue to roll on that upward trend. Things haven't slowed down. Therefore, police and fire can maintain the level of job security that they have because of the population that we're bringing to them. Some of the new active commercial projects we've got, you know, the Mountain Light Head Start, Red 8, South Valley Equine, the Cycle Bar, Champion Sports, the Saratoga Police Station, we've got that up there now. We've started the review process on that, getting real close. Arby's should be off of that because they do have their C of O. We're moving that one forward, just like if I had a police chief with a gun sitting right behind me, we're moving that one forward. Number one priority. That's awesome. Number of permits issued. Yep.
Champion Sports is one I'm not familiar with. Where is that? I'm sorry. All the other ones I recognize, but.
Champion Sports, if and my mind went just blank as you asked me. I believe it is up in the Sergeant Court area.
Oh. Okay.
It's a new building that will be up in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Economic Development Director, any comments on Champion Sports?
I'll fill you in on it so that next time you've got the answers when I can't remember them. Permit numbers continue to stay pretty aggressive. I was asked earlier this week if we've experienced any slowdowns, and I said, yeah, it was called September, but October jumped right back in there and made up the difference. We're still on trend with permit numbers this year to maybe if we continue on the trends we are right now, we'll exceed what we did in 16 and 17, we're looking like we'll be closer to the 1,150 range for this year. So things can, huh? You think we can narrow it right down and hit that 3 years in a row?
If someone comes in for 11-17, you'd be like, sorry, you have to wait till January 1.
We're done for the year.
Close for business.
So can I just let Angela know that once we hit 11-16, she can have the rest of the year off?
It depends on what day that is. No, I was just going to say, I love that we have this great historical data, but just for trending purposes and also visibility purposes in this room, those online, 6 or 7 years, you don't have to go all the way back to 2007 anymore on these tables. Then the font can get bigger.
Good.
So yeah.
Thanks for that advice on that.
And that's for everyone, like all these reports that are coming in, because we started doing this about 9 years ago when we started telling we wanted this kind of data. It just gets, yeah.
A little bit redundant as we get too deep into it.
No. My laser surgery, I got to get it touched up.
This one is just talking about the number of inspections that we continue to do. Month of October was the busiest month for inspections we've done at 2,369. And the guys are okay. They're okay. They're, you know, the advantage that we have is we've got many large subdivisions with a lot going on in them, so you can stick a guy in a subdivision. He can start at one end. You cut out on the travel time as long as you plan and coordinate your assignments well. You can cut down on the travel time. Comparison this year versus last year as far as average number of inspections per inspector per month. The question was asked earlier. In 2017, we averaged 333 inspections per month per inspector. Thus far in 2018, we're at 348 inspections per month per inspector. So it's pretty consistent with where we were last year. And like I say, with the staffing that we have and the spacing that we have to where we can plan and coordinate and keep people in generalized areas where the guys are doing a great job of keeping up, and the inspections that they're doing, they're not sacrificing any quality at all because of the numbers. We're really running quite well. So.
Real quick, you obviously see the trends coming. You see the developments coming in. That's something that I want to make sure. I mean, we're talking. They're talking about staff and that we need more staff. You're saying, oh yeah, we're good. It's typical of you. That's what you do all the time, which I appreciate the conservative nature. But with Oakwood, with other and D.R. Horton, there's a really good chance that you might be at 370, 380. You might getting, and that's when we will see a degradation of service. So. I just want to make sure that when we're talking in January at the retreat that we're really looking at that, and even if we can just have a conversation where as a council we can say we approve if needed, so that we don't wait a month to get through
that process.
The process. So it's just on tap, if you would, because again, just for people in the audience, I mean, these people are paid for because permit fees pay for inspections.
Right.
So it's not like we're adding a huge amount of burden to the city. We're trying to keep the city safe. So I just wanted to make sure that your over-conservative nature, which I love, doesn't get you caught in a tough spot come March when we start picking up again.
Very good. I appreciate that. And I always appreciate that. That's something that the council and you specifically have really been supportive and encouraging over the years, and I appreciate that. And I pass that information on to the inspectors to let them know how much you appreciate and are watching out for them when it comes to those things. So thank you. Any other questions?
No, we're good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to the public hearing. Okay, first public hearing is 2300 West Boundary Adjustment with the City of Lehigh, Ordinance 18-35.
As far as City Council is concerned, this is the last step in the process of approving this. So one thing to point out is the boundary line of the boundary line adjustment is going to be slightly towards the west because we were going off of the cross section. So the center line of the road is when we expand 2300 West with future development, the property line will be right in the middle of the road. But right now, the west side of the road is unimproved. If that makes sense. On our side.
It's the future center line, not the
future center line, not the current center line.
Which makes sense.
And then also, you know, this is a public hearing. We received no protests at all. People can protest during the public hearing.
Okay.
And one thing that I would like to note is we have received an annexation application for the Smith property, both the north and south Smith property, as well as one of the other properties in between. So it's going to take up those 3 properties in conjunction with the North Shore annexation. So that's going to be kind of going through its process as well. And so this pretty much will set that boundary along that entire western edge of that side.
Okay, great. This is a public hearing. Is anybody here for public input on the 2300 West boundary adjustment for the city, with the city of Lehigh? Please be respectful in your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is anybody here for public input on the boundary adjustment?
All 3 of you?
Okay. I will close the public hearing. Comments from the council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilwoman Bartsch.
I will move that we approve the 2300 West boundary adjustment with the City of Lehigh Ordinance 18-35 dated today.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. These buttons won't stop blinking. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Okay, roll call. Porter?
Aye.
Bartsch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Pedeska?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. We have a public hearing for the fiscal year 2019 budget amendments, Resolution R 18-51.
Mayor, City Council, I'm here in place of Justin tonight for the second budget amendment for fiscal year 19. The budget amendments that are proposed were in your packet, and I'm just here to answer any questions you might have concerning any budget amendments.
Councilman Porter?
I had some questions about the sports complex design budget amendment. Has anybody been able to get a more detailed? It's a very large number, and so I'd like more than just a.
Sure. Mark Edwards is here to help answer some of those questions relative to that number.
Okay.
So 200 of that number, starting off with, is for the bonus. And Councilman McComber asked a question earlier about the timing of that. They're still eligible for that up through November 21st. We had to give them some days extensions during the contract period because of some of the lighting issues that we were working out with Kenny Singh on that particular project. So that's why it's a little bit longer period. Much of that 546 has to do with the conduit that was approved throughout the park. For us to install the signs and other things. You also have to remember that this contract, it was always anticipated that this work would get done, but we had to amend Kenny's project and take it from the other person that we had awarded the contract to, so we're still within the budget on much of this. Okay. But we had to amend his budget or his contract to pick up the cost of the lighting that was outside of that. So there was some savings as well from us buying the lighting as opposed to other things. Mark, what else did I miss in that overall description? Yeah, let's remember. Do you want to come to that microphone up there?
Yeah.
Yep, thanks. Sorry, just.
Because we have people online. There's 2 of them. Your mom doesn't count.
Just quickly, like. I hope she's got better things to do with her time.
Just like Mark was saying, we want to account 375,000 of that. Actually, 349 was going to go to a contractor who could not qualify, who could not bond for the project to install the lights. We bought the lights directly from the vendor. 349 was supposed to go to a contractor that bid and was awarded the contract, but he never could bond. So we ended up handing 349, this 349 portion to Kenny Sang, and we had to pay a premium to get them to finish up the project, keep us from rebidding. So 375 total. So you deduct 375 from that number, and all of a sudden the cost didn't go up that much more. There was a $26,000 premium. Added to that, we had a $62,000 change order for some cuts and fills issues. We had an overrun on conduit. We have about 10 miles of conduit in there in the park right now. We added about 17,000 just to get the security cameras in and to a few other oversights. So there was another 64,000. We had some issues with our designers, some electrical bathroom fixtures that we had to come up with some money for. There was another $149,000.
149 for that? For a designer?
Yeah, so, I mean, but that was something that we, you know.
That's a big area, though.
It is. So, but for the most part, you know, we feel like the increase in quantities and the conduit and some of these other things that we had been asking for, and we added to that. The bathroom thing was the fixtures were not clearly articulated as to who was going to provide those fixtures, and we wanted good, solid fixtures that would not be easily broken, not be easily vandalized, things of that nature. So, you know, that was something. But I believe we also got a deduct on that, didn't we?
Yeah, the engineering firm did give us some sweat equity to help make up for that. So
they covered, I think, 50% of the cost of that in some design work that they've.
Kenny Sang covered 50% of that cost.
Yes.
And the design engineer covered some of it.
Some of it, sorry.
In sweat equity.
So of that 100,000, you know, there was a big chunk of that got taken care of in different ways. So all in all, I would say if that electrical contract weren't included in this change order, you look at that and go, that's a good project for a $12 million project. You know, a couple $100,000 worth of expenses.
And you would have had to have spent that money anyway. I mean, it may have been excluded from the contract according to them, but. The money would have had to have been spent anyway.
Did that money come out of the contingency? I mean, was our contingency enough to cover that?
Well, I think we're here to
make sure that we've
make sure the budget covers it.
The budget covers that, but I mean, but
All
this
right.
is a pretty big project, and I think overall you're going to be very pleased with Patriot Park when it's finished.
I'm sure we are, right? Right.
What's that?
I mean, just for staff's.
That's. If they want their 2%, they will have it by the 21st, and that's their plans.
I want access. Sorry, go
No,
ahead.
that's fine. Just for, you know, staff's education, I think anytime you have a budget amendment over $1 million, you probably want a little bit more detail than just a number. So it's probably less than $1 million is my threshold, but I saw $1.7 million, and I was like, I need more information than that.
Very often did I call.
Yeah. So
if you'd like, we could give you a complete rundown of all of those. We can send you off some information
that'd be great if you just email that to us.
You can do that. Yeah, that's easy.
But tonight's accounting makes me feel a lot more comfortable than just, you know, here's this lump sum. Why? You know, that's a. But what you've explained a lot of it, and so I'm much more comfortable than I was earlier.
Just so you know, the 21st is supposed to be the end date on this for substantial completion. So they're out there tuning up the lights as we speak. This was supposed to be the final night of tuning up all the ball field lights, and that's pretty cool.
Can we get a tour once it's?
Anytime you'd like.
All right.
Absolutely.
I don't know if we all want to go together or if you just want me to call
What
you.
you were alluding to, you'd like to access, you'd like to take a tour? Or?
Now that it's almost done, I mean, I walked through it when it's.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone
half-built,
through, we saw it was a lot of dirt and things and stuff. I just, in order for someone to get $200,000, so for me, substantial means usability.
Substantial is ready to use, yes.
Yeah, I know the baseball fields, obviously, we weren't going to use those because we wanted to let the grass grow and everything. But the pavilion, the bathrooms, the playground, the pickleball courts should be usable.
We
in
are
order to
very
get
specific in the contract about what is considered substantial completion. Yeah, very consistent with substantial completion in most
But yeah,
contracts.
I would be interested in going. I think it's more fun when we go together because then we can like, look at this, look at you.
Yeah.
Would you like to wait till after the 21st?
Unless they beat it.
We can go after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything Friday.
Okay. I have Friday off too, actually.
So we'll have Mark schedule a site visit for the week of the 26th sometime. We'll reach out to you and try and find a time.
Mark, one final question on that, clarification. You mentioned a change in fill and grading and the increase because of that. Didn't we actually decrease massively the amount of fill we brought in?
We did.
So that was still above and beyond what we had planned?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Real quick, if the
Bill got really expensive.
Bring your kids to the walk. I think it'd be fun to have our.
Oh, you want to bring those kids to the new playground. That is the coolest.
Yeah, super.
I don't know if you've seen it yet.
No, might still to play.
All the surfacing's done, playground's all in. It's beautiful.
So, Mayor and Council, and I want to apologize, Mark is here on kind of short notice. Jeremy was kind of working along with these items, and he's out of town for the next couple of weeks visiting family. So Mark got thrown under the bus quickly, and so I appreciate his willingness to be here to help answer some of the questions.
He's
so
out of
thank
the
you.
hemisphere, isn't he?
Where's
the Philippines
He's in
at?
a much different time zone, let's put it that way. I
But for
believe
being
he's
under
a
the bus,
day-
we do have fire and
day
EMS right
behind
there.
us in the Philippines? A day ahead of us in the Philippines.
Yeah.
I appreciate you doing it.
Thank you.
He's still working, though. I got an email last night at 3:40.
Yes.
Oh, Wilden has one more. Wilden, you have a comment?
Not for Mark.
Oh, okay.
You're done.
Okay. Shalice, I guess you're back on.
Sorry about that.
You've got Wilden and Councilwoman Barch.
I did have a question.
Yeah, you're up.
Oh, sorry, you were jumping.
Your
to the
light's
next
not
one.
blinking. You're good.
Okay, I'll talk now. One thing that'd be helpful, like when you're adjusting a category of expenses, like on the Bluffdale Police, is just putting a net number there. I mean, I can do it roughly in my head.
At 0.
Yeah. I mean, it's 0, but it took me a minute to go through that, some of those things. And then also, like when there's a large, similar to Councilman Porter's commentary, when there's a large number at the bottom, just talk about how the funding overall, is this going to impact like our ability to do other things? Just like a high level analysis, especially if the expenses are, because we're not adjusting any revenue figures, so it's purely expenses here. It's just talking about, are we okay funding this? And I know we are, based upon the conversations, we're generally in line with budget in this one item, 0, but that just makes it a little bit easier.
Sure.
Just an analysis will be okay, or whatever it may be. Yep.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Councilwoman Barch?
One question on the water design for the Northgate subdivision. That seems, and this is probably maybe more for Gordon and Mark, but that seems unusual that we would fund a design for a specific subdivision's water project. Is that just location-based, or is that actually for Northgate?
Go ahead, Gordon.
The Culinary Water Impact Fund?
So it's master plan related. It's not for the Northgate project. It's to get water down on the east side of Redwood Road.
So you're just calling it Northgate because it's location-based?
It's through there.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to clarify. It wasn't for that specific project. We weren't doing something for someone out of the ordinary. So yeah, thanks.
Okay. I don't see any other, oh, Wilden's back on.
That was for a motion.
Oh, well, we have to have a public hearing. Anybody here for public input on the fiscal year 2019 budget amendments? If you are, please state your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please avoid repetitive comments, and please be respectful in your comments. Is anybody here for public input? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Councilman Wilden?
I'll move that we approve the fiscal 2019 budget amendments, resolution R1851, dated today.
Councilman Porter?
I'll second.
Have a first and a second. From any further discussion from the council? Okay. Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. For all. Yeah. Okay, business items. Fiscal year 2019 first quarter financial update.
Mayor, City Council, in your packet was the first quarter finance update, which I hate the first quarter, to be completely honest with you. It's not, yeah, it isn't at all. But if we look at our tax revenue in comparison to last year, we're up in all categories in our tax revenue. And in our development revenue, it's a little bit lower than it is last year at this time, which can be cyclical. I mean, it can, depending on when the applications come in. And although that this was concerning to me at first, I started studying October, And I saw October was a pretty good rebound in those areas. So our development revenue is looking very healthy for the second quarter this year. So other than that and the KRI and the other analysis, is there any questions concerning the first quarter?
Councilwoman Barch?
More of a, not specific about this first quarter, but kind of a policy question. One thing I noticed was that the Treasury Department is up because the fees for credit card payments and things like that. Do we charge those back to the customer? Are we covering those?
We don't do the fees, but we charge them back to the enterprise funds because our utilities are paid with credit cards. And so we charge the enterprise funds the cost of those.
So I just want to make sure that we're, as a city, not subsidizing somebody's credit card payment. So
no.
Does that make sense? I just want to make sure
it's fees that we have to pay based on the fact that we accept credit cards.
No, but that's what I'm saying. When somebody pays with credit card, they should be covering their own cost. So when I pay with my credit card, Councilman McComber shouldn't have to subsidize that through his taxes as it comes out of the general fund. I should have to pay like a tiny bit more to cover that cost.
Cost of doing business.
It is in a lot of ways.
The rate goes up. We're not past due accounts. Our default rate goes down. I mean, that's like telling Walmart you can't take credit cards anymore because the next guy with cash will have to pay it.
So we are subsidizing though. Okay.
Yeah.
I would actually say we're not subsidizing it because if people turn in checks, a lot of times financial institutions with institutionals like a municipality will charge you per check.
Right.
And the processing fee and the time goes up. So
it actually is the same, more or less, either way.
it balances out.
Okay, fair enough then.
It does.
Okay, any other comments? Okay.
Great,
Painless.
thank you.
Oh,
That's okay.
he turned his mic out, then he turned it on.
I'm not used to this. I'll get there. The one thing, I know we've talked about this in the past, but like on the tax revenue, especially for like the property tax, instead of that one line item doing 25% per quarter, maybe look at that. Because then next quarter, we're going to look like we're way over collected on the 50%. So maybe specific line items like property tax, Q1, your collection is 10% of the yearly budget, and then Q2 is whatever, 80%. So certain line items, I don't think you need to do 25%.
Okay.
Maybe building permits, something similar. And then that would get things off the red level.
Yeah, with property tax, I think that's, because second quarter is like 95% is when we collect our taxes,
Yeah, and we're going to look way over way over.
For the rest of the year.
Oh, we got so much money to spend. We know better, but like,
sure.
Just from a public perspective. So I know some of the others, we've looked at it in the past and the data just isn't there to adjust it, but I think property tax is pretty easy to deal with.
Okay. Of 2 months.
Yeah, I think just adjusting the property tax percentage, the rest you probably just leave as is because it's a little bit unpredictable.
Okay.
That would help on some of it. So.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Item 2, City Campus Community Plan and Village Plan.
Mayor and Council, this is a request for a community plan and village plan approval for the new city municipal complex. The Planning Commission heard this last week. You were emailed a copy of the report of action of the Planning Commission meeting. So basically we're looking at the property outlined in the blue. Now when the Patriot Park came through last time, that was not included in any plan at all. So because it's the planned community zone, we're now at the point where we're going to include this in a community plan. The village plan then, Village Plan 1 will be the Patriot Park and the police station. Just briefly, the district area plan identifies several types of place types. The place type identified as the best use for this area would be the resort hospitality. It includes public buildings, city open parks, things like that. With that type of park, the open space, the entire area actually qualifies technically as open space. So the 133 plus whatever acres we have here at build out will be all identified as open space. Just some basic development standards here. For the most part, the development in this community plan and village plan will be Title 19. There are a few things, obviously, the elevations which we looked at earlier at the work session, those will be included here in the plan, be specific to the site. Setbacks, building height, those types of things, all basically standard type of information. Signage, lighting, off-street parking, all will go by Title 19. Again, the village plan will identify Patriot Park, the future police station, the elevations we looked at earlier for the police building, which will then carry on to future buildings in the project. And just some maps that identify vehicular plans, pedestrian plans. These are all part of the requirements of the village plan at that level. And then, again, basically, staff recommends approval of the project. You, of course, have the option to continue or deny the request.
Okay, comments with the council. Councilman McComber.
I'm just wondering if Shelley has a list of a page and a half. Darn! I wanted you to put them through the ringer. So all in all, I appreciate that, you know, when I went through the packet, complies, you know, I say this to other developers as well. I just appreciate all of the complies or with small variants. And then also, I just had a question. With the lighting at Patriot Park, are we just going to be tying in the same kind of feel for the lighting into the police station, or are we going to do a different lighting package for the police station and the city hall area? Mark is looking to answer.
If you recall, much of the lighting interior to Patriot Park is baseballs or
Right.
baseball bats. So we would not be carrying that necessarily to the city hall site or to the police station site. So we'll go more to our traditional lighting packages once we get off the Patriot Park. Patriot Park will be unique. We allow for Patriot Park to have its unique theming and things of that nature. But I would think for sure for the municipal campus, that will just be our standard street lighting package.
Yeah, I mean, and there's some argument with the nautical theme that we are going with the building and stuff. If the lighting, I don't want to have extra parts, but if we could, like if the parts would still work, but have something that can create some of the look and feel in that area, that would be great, but it's not necessary.
Maybe just to clarify, the interior lights, the plaza lighting is the baseball bat type.
Right.
The street lighting along 4th South and all of the parking lot lighting are the collector lights. And that's the same lighting you're going to see on 4th South, Saratoga Road.
Oh, great.
And
So
inside the
consistency.
parking at the police station.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. And we are following Title 19 relative to all of these standards, so we're complying with that as well.
Okay, Councilwoman Barch.
So just a couple of questions. The 100,000 potential square feet, is that rough estimate of our actual police facility and the
Police,
campus?
City Hall, when we're a population of 120,000 people, library, when it's gone through 2 iterations. You got to remember the police station, we're designing that so that that can expand its footprint. So this is kind of a really big number, knowing that we were going to kind of incrementally grow and have it be what it needs to be. Obviously, we can amend this as we get more information. Again, without having designed a library, without having designed what recreational amenities are going to be going on there or anything along those lines, we kept it to be a broad, fluffy number that would capture the totality of what we're trying to do, but at the same time, we're not committed to anything besides the police building and Patriot Park at this point.
Okay. And then my second comment is actually on the open space calculations. So per the 1926, the parking lots actually can't be counted as open space. So it says may include trees, pedestrian trails, it can include green space, it can include park strips and things like that, but it doesn't say it may include the actual parking lot. So we just need to pull that parking lot section out and take that percentage out of the open space.
We'll take a look at that. Yeah, the resort hospitality, I wanted, without, you know, it's still going to be well above the
Absolutely,
requirement.
but just to be just with the code, we need to make sure we take that out.
And we were looking at it from kind of the alternate perspective, knowing that the public safety parking lot would be crossover extra parking for the ball fields as well as the library and some of, I mean, the whole purpose of this campus is to have multi-shared use facility.
It
And
is.
so, for example, like a parking lot, the parking for the ball fields, we knew that we were needing more parking. So we felt like by providing additional parking, it would be consistent because it is a shared concept. But we'll
per code,
represent
you
it
can't,
however you would like it to be.
Yeah.
It's municipal and it's civic and it's
Yeah.
It's not like this is a for-profit issue.
Absolutely. And then the last thing was just a question for Chief Campbell. Looking at the fire lanes going through, you don't have any fire lanes going up to the north fields, and I'm just wondering if you're concerned about the distances that you have to take it through.
We'll just cut the fence.
You're just going to cut the fence and drive the truck through, right
Drive
over
right
the
across the
field?
ball field.
Sweet. No.
Yeah, no. We have access from those two
I think it's the next slide, Dave.
furthest northern, the roundabout, and then the location over on the east side. There really, right now, there isn't a need. There isn't really any structures that that would have to be, basically contended with in those locations.
The ambulance could get up there,
Everything
okay.
else we can get
Okay.
from the rest of the area.
So eventually, when we get those northern fields, we'll also have the additional access from the north, so
Yes,
that'll
absolutely.
negate that concern.
Greater connectivity.
Okay, thank you.
Will the fire truck, or not the fire truck probably, but the ambulance be able to drive it? Because that center one is actually a
Right.
drive.
All of the concrete has been hardened, basically from the south parking lot up for allowing food trucks and things of that nature. So I would be fine taking an ambulance on it. I would not want to take a ladder truck or any of the real heavy equipment. But I mean, we do have fire hydrants, interior to this complex and things of that nature. So we've got some fire protection already built in.
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
Besides that, these are mostly just concrete
Yeah.
cinder block buildings.
Councilman Wilden?
I just like to point out for the police station, I really like condition 2, that all the requirements of the fire department shall be met. So.
You'd actually be surprised at how long that list is.
Sorry, I have to push a button and wait to tell a joke now. So.
Okay, I have
way too much power now.
I have a motion from Councilman Porter, or Councilman Barch. Okay.
Gotta turn me, oh, there you go. I move that we approve the city campus community plan and village plan, city initiated, as listed in business item 2 with all staff findings and conditions, adding a condition that staff recalculate the open space per Councilwoman Barch's comments.
I'll second.
Have a second from Councilwoman Barch. Do a roll call. Councilman Podeska.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Patriot Park sponsorship contract with Admiral Beverage Corp., Pepsi.
So, Mayor and Council, and I think maybe Kevin could even speak to this better, but there's a part on there that their corporate counsel's reviewing a recommendation made by the city attorney for liquidated damages to be changed to actual damages. And so we're just waiting for their corporate counsel to review that part. They've asked to, if we could table it till the next meeting, so that gives their corporate counsel time. Now, Kevin has suggested that you could also approve it pending that, we take care of that language administratively, but the request has been that, if we could table it till the first meeting in December.
Mark or Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be pretty simple if they really, all that I did was switch out the term liquidated damages for actual damages. Under Utah law, liquidated damages are not allowed as a penalty. They are allowed so long as it's reflective of actual damages, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of calling them liquidated damages. You might as well just call them actual damages. So it doesn't seem like it's controversial to me, but I suppose it could. If this is kind of a sticking point for them still, and if you'll notice, there's the clause in section 7B under remedies. So if it's a sticking point for them to leave the liquidated damages clause in, I suppose we would just argue, if we ever sued over this, that liquidated damages are illegal. So I suppose I'd be okay leaving it in there, but I don't want to fight that battle if we don't have to. It's better just to have the contract language the way that we need it to be worded. There are a couple other concessions that we had made that we weren't necessarily comfortable with. There's some language about right of first refusal that has the potential of conflicting with our contracting and purchasing policy. But I think we can find a way to make that work if that clause is ever used by Admiral. But this liquidated damages clause is tough because I don't see why they wouldn't be comfortable with actual damages versus liquidated damages that could be used as a penalty. So anyway, I would just ask the council to approve it and contingent on Admiral also approving it. If they're not comfortable with that and want additional changes, they could come to the council, but also delegate to staff the ability to make non-substantive changes to that clause in accordance with what Admiral's corporal counsel says. Okay. And then also to prove it with the change to switch out the liquidated damages to actual damages.
So just a couple things to add on to that. Just keep in mind, this is a sponsorship contract. We're not hiring them to do specific work. They're giving us money. So the liquidated damages also would be, pending upon the council ending the contract, which I guess there's always the potential for that, but I doubt it when they're giving us money and a portion of their commissions off of vending sales and things like that. Same thing with first right of refusal. We're not hiring them to contract something. We're accepting a sponsorship proposal. We do this with all of our sponsorships on all of our events. It's just the standard for sponsorships to give first right of refusal to your sponsors. So that's kind of the approach that we've taken.
Councilwoman Barch.
I really appreciate all the work you've done on this, David. At this time, I'm ready to make a motion if the rest of the council's ready. Yep. Okay. I would move that we approve the Patriot Park sponsorship contract with Admiral Beverage Corporation, Resolution R18-52, dated today, contingent upon Admiral also accepting and asking staff to adjust the language for damages from liquid to actual, and that they be able to adjust the language as necessary to make that happen.
Okay. Councilman Wilden.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. You were next in line. Did you have a comment?
Well, now, yeah.
Okay.
Councilwoman Barge, I would be okay if we approve also as part of the condition, if it comes back and they're not agreeable to actual, to allow them to approve liquidated as well. No. I don't see, if Kevin, obviously the primary objective would to get actual versus liquidated, but if it doesn't work, I would be fine with actual liquidated because Kevin's generally comfortable. And if that's the one sticking point, I don't see a need to come back to the council.
I'm acceptable to that.
So we got an amended first? Okay, and an amended second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Award of contract for Saratoga Hills Water Zone Change Project to Nolan Construction in the amount of $103,240, Resolution R 18-53.
This is a pretty cool project, a little technical, but we've got one of the better contractors in this part of the state doing this project for us. Anything I can answer on this?
So just real quickly, summary, we've got a neighborhood that's right at the top of the water zone that is getting extremely high pressures. This would be some modifications and changes that would drop them into the lower pressure or into the next pressure zone up, so that it will bring their pressure zone down. And it will, it's hugely beneficial long term. We've got some grants and other opportunities to work with this on, but in essence, it will just kind of regulate that pressure and give us a little bit more pressure for the rest of the zone this is being taken out of. But they're right at the top of that pressure zone.
So just to give you a warning, we're going to be in an intersection that we just repaved here not too long ago. So you may have to explain to some of the residents that live around you in Saratoga Hills that will be happening.
The Grand View Station?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Do it in the summer.
Okay.
Well, we're giving them quite a while to do this. We obviously can't replace asphalt in the wintertime. We're hoping that they'll start later on this winter and key way right into paving season, but it's unfortunate, but that intersection is going to be tore up again.
It was nice for a week.
If you want us to delay it until the spring, we can certainly, work with the contractor to complete it closer to the spring.
With the construction already out, and now, because Grandview has not been a problem because of the 2 lanes coming out and everything, but as soon as we start putting cones up there, it's going to back it up again. And if you can take the school traffic out.
I'd rather see it in the summer.
Yeah. So if we can talk to them and see.
Sure. We'll talk to them.
I don't know, do you guys?
The school traffic makes that intersection horrible.
So what if we did it over the Christmas holidays with them patching it with a cold mix and then hot patch fixing it in the winter or in the summer?
Again, as long as school's not in.
Just as long as school's out. With school in, that's just a horrible spot.
How long do you expect this project to take, Mark?
I think they'll be in and out of that intersection in 8 to 10 days.
So it's Christmas break. Just to point out, you guys, because a lot of people don't know, but Saratoga Shores Elementary is the ALL school. So, I mean, a lot of those schools have things, but the ALL school isn't just residents within Saratoga Springs going to a language course. This is kids from parents from Lehigh and Eagle Mountain, and it is this ALL school for 3 cities.
It's not in front of the school. It's it's in front of the.
No, but everyone comes.
Everybody goes up
through Terrace Road, I think.
So we can talk with them about doing it maybe over spring break.
It's not actually Grandview?
Not Grandview and Redwood?
Grandview, no, it's Grandview, and there is some work to be done on Grandview also, on Redwood Road, but the major work is going to be done at Lakeview Terrace Road and Grandview
We'll have a
Boulevard.
permanent dip trench in the new road.
Yeah. Well, let's hope not.
Speed dips or whatever we call
So,
those.
but we can work with them for spring break or
We have
something
some
like
there
that
now.
and try and.
Well,
There's some now.
No,
is the
but we're going
price lower because of the timing too? I mean, I really like Mark's suggestion of doing it around the Christmas break, because if we punted everything to the summer, I bet you they would revise their bid amount.
We certainly bid it late in the fall, so we'd get the advantage of getting some winter prices.
So I really like using those different time frames to keeping the bid there.
Okay, we'll see what we can do about that.
Okay.
Do you want to approve the contract or not is the big question.
I think we're good at approving it with staff to make.
And us trying to mitigate the timing of that as much
Yes.
as possible.
Okay.
And if they could really pack it really nice, bring in the machines to make sure that we.
Widen that trench so we don't get the dips. Those school buses hammer that road.
There's a lot of weight. Look, those trash trucks.
The trash trucks,
They're the
school
ones that are really
buses.
putting the weight on it, yeah.
Because even up the road higher where the guy cut the gas line, the water line, did he miss anything? Sewer line. Those
Storm
trucks
drain,
have just.
water,
Yeah,
yeah,
those trucks
you
have
name
already
it.
started dipping that patch there, so.
Really?
Yeah, that patch has got some good bumps in it already.
I'll have to go take a look at that.
So yeah, if you could, I don't know if that patch works under warranty still, but on the.
I believe it is.
As you're going up Grandview, that patch on that side has started to create a big dip in it. Yeah. Okay. Councilman Wilden has a comment.
If the bid amount does change because of slightly because of timing preferences, Mark, do you have signing authority to approve that under whatever your signing authority is? Because if you do, I'd be great with that, so it doesn't have to come
I
back.
do have the ability to go to a certain percentage. above
Okay,
this
I just didn't know, since this is coming from the council, you couldn't address that. I personally would be okay if it changed here or there because of a special request, as long as it's within your signing authority to not bring it back.
Okay.
Then if you'd like, I can make a motion.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion from you, Councilman Wilden.
I move that we approve the award of contract for Saratoga Hills Water Zone Change Project to Nolan Construction, the amount of $103,240, Resolution R-1853, dated today, granting, well, you already have that authority, so we don't need to grant it in the motion.
Okay, Councilman McComber.
I have a second, but then I have a comment.
Okay.
So additional comment, I think that it's important to note that we would not allow a developer to cut into this brand new road. And I want the staff to be aware that I wish we would have gotten ahead of this and we could have done this before, because we would have required them to wait. We have that ability to do that to a developer, and we're now breaking our own rule. It just makes me sick that we're doing that, but I get that we need to do that. But just like we were proactive with the power lines on Redwood Road and took advantage of the road being cut open, we just need to, in those meetings, those planning meetings, when you guys are talking about things, you know, so important that we're like, hey, yeah, we have that sewer thing that we were trying to do. Oh, we have that water thing that we're trying to do, so we can avoid this in the future.
And we certainly try. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. We try to look around as many corners and get as far ahead of these things as we can, and some things we just miss it. So thank you.
No, and I understand that.
Okay. I have a first from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? To a roll call. Podeska?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. North Saratoga Springs Development Streetlight Project, authorization to enter into contracts, resolution R 18-54.
Mayor and Council, this is an ambitious project for us to get all the street lighting done in SSD. You know, we see this as a good opportunity to kind of charge ahead. We will need to acquire some of these lights, and you know, Mark, do you have any additional feedback on this?
No, we're going to bring SSD into reasonable compliance for their lighting at all the intersections. We're going to have all LED lights. We'll have gotten rid of most of the HID lights in there, so it'll be lit up nice. We'll have nice, safe intersections.
And people
for roads you don't even patrol, right? I mean, or do you patrol those?
We'll get criticism for having too bright of lights.
Yeah,
is probably what we're going to have.
We have a 50-50 mix from what I can tell of people in there.
It's the people
Some
who are
hate,
by
some love lights.
It's the people who are by the lights that are complaining, and I obviously live in this neighborhood and I hear it, but it's the people where the light's going to at or where we're going to be adding who are frustrated because it's flooding into their homes. So appreciate that you've been communicating, but if we can continue to work with the HOA leadership as well as just any other communication, maybe even some quick statistics that this helps with safety because they've had break-ins, cars, they complained about that. We weren't getting police, you know, lighting up will help with the safety, the walking.
You're going to see a higher quality of light in here. This is full cutoff LED lights. They're going to have great coverage. You're not going to have these lights shining in people's windows like the old HID lights, where the lights were farther down below the Acorn style lights. You know, you're going to have a much better light in here.
Okay. Yeah, but just like some of the, as you're communicating with them, help them just like with the added security, et cetera, because they're not happy.
And we're going only as far as Centennial, so we're not going to be down in your neighborhood. That's got mostly it has good lighting down there.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. It's a newer development.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I had one.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll do a motion. So I know we have a SID in place for this. I'm assuming, I know we've been going along with.
We actually dissolved that SID.
But we weren't able to.
We did.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the SID still exists, but we rolled everything into the overall streetlight fund. We're going to take some fund balance out of the streetlight fund, push this project forward, get it done, get all the lights converted over, basically from Centennial to the north.
All right, that was my question. All right. I move that we approve the North SSD streetlight project and give authorization to enter into contracts, resolution R18-54 dated today.
Okay, Councilman Podeska.
A second.
I have a first from Councilman Porter, a second from Councilman Podeska. To a roll call. Podeska.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is the Patriot Park construction contract amendment with Kenny Singh.
We've already spoke about this. Staff is recommending that the council approve the contract, the revised contract to Kenny Singh for the extra revise to a total of $9,439,256.60.
Okay. I will entertain a motion. Councilman Wilden.
I move that we approve the Patriot Park construction contract amendment with Kenny Singh Construction, the amount of $748,108, resolution R 1855, dated today.
We have a first from Councilman Wilden.
I'll second.
Councilman Barch has our second. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call. Porter.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
Comber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you all.
Tell Jeremy he owes you lunch or something.
Probably owes them a lot more than that.
A lot more than that, probably. Code Amendment, Title II, Government Organization Ordinance 18-37.
Mayor and Council, this is basically the code that we discussed back at the retreat and for the last few months relative to the council liaison roles. There was one thing that was brought up to me right before this meeting that I just wanted to kind of quickly point out, and that would go into 3D. And basically, there's some language that we would like to at least propose that basically says the mayor may appoint not more than 2 members to serve as council liaisons, and it goes through all this thing, but basically just adding with the advice and consent of the council. So it's not just the mayor exclusively, but with the advice and consent of council. Just, you know, so that we don't have the mayor kind of changing people's roles or something like that at will, but just so that it includes the council in the decision-making process as far as those appointments go. So if that's something that you're comfortable with, we would, you know, give that item to you and be happy to take whatever feedback you've got on this particular item.
Okay, Councilwoman Barch.
I'm ready to make a motion if you're ready.
Oh, I'm ready.
I move that we approve the Code Amendment Title II Government Organization Ordinance 18-37 dated today, including the adjusted verbiage with the advice and consent of council.
Okay, I have first from Councilwoman Barch, Councilman Podeska.
A second.
I have a second from Councilman Podeska. Roll call. Councilman Porter.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the minutes from October 2nd and October 16th.
I move that we approve the minutes from October 2nd and October 16th with the changes that were submitted.
Yeah, my changes were 2 minor changes. One was a little bit more substantive in that it didn't allow for an increase of 10 units of density.
Yeah, 2, yeah.
So it was up to a total of.
Okay.
I'll
I have
second.
a first from Councilman Porter, a second from Councilwoman Barch. Any further discussion? Porter.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We need to enter into a closed session tonight.
So moved for the reasons listed on the agenda.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Wilden.
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman McComber. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We'll take a quick 5-minute break.